Shadr Sanders just said 9 words that every NFL GM who passed on him should lose sleep over. I have to do my part just to be here. Let that sink in. The Cleveland Browns rookie quarterback, the only real spark on a 3-11 disaster of a team, just confessed he's not even sure if he'll be on the roster next season. And the kicker, he said it calmly, professionally, like a quarterback who's seen this movie before and already knows how the ending plays out. In less than 12 minutes, what was supposed to be a routine media appearance before a meaningless Week 17 game turned into something else entirely. It was a message, one laced with honesty, maturity, and maybe even quiet frustration. Because in those short moments, Shadr didn't just speak like a rookie. He spoke like a future franchise QB, stuck in limbo, waiting for a team, any team, to finally commit. And if you're a fan of the New York Giants, you should be nauseous. Because what Shadr said, it wasn't just powerful, it was a reminder of the massive mistake your team might have made. And if the Browns don't figure it out fast, someone smarter will. But what exactly did Shadr say that has NFL insiders buzzing, front offices scrambling, and fans wondering if he's already preparing for life after Cleveland? Let's break it down. You could feel the weight in his words. No theatrics, no cliché answers, just raw honesty. When Shadr Sanders was asked if he felt any sense of commitment from the Browns heading into next season, he didn't dance around it. He didn't dodge. He looked straight ahead and gave an answer that hit like a gut punch to anyone paying attention. I don't own the organization. I can't promise anything will happen. I'm not God. This isn't just a young quarterback trying to manage expectations. This is someone who understands the game behind the game, the politics, the uncertainty, the way a franchise can smile one day and replace you the next. And unlike most rookies who try to say the right things and keep it safe for the media, Shadr didn't pretend he had clarity. He admitted he doesn't know what comes next. Think about that. He's played better than anyone expected for a 5th-round pick. He's led with poise. He's taken hits behind a broken offensive line. He's been one of the few bright spots for a team barely keeping it together. And yet, he has no confirmation about his role for next year. You could say this is just the NFL. Nothing is promised, right? But that's exactly the point. Shadr is one of the only players actually saying it out loud. He's not sugarcoating anything. He's under no illusion that his job is safe. That attitude alone separates him from most young quarterbacks. How many rookie QBs are given a microphone and speak with this kind of clarity? No ego, no entitlement, just facts. I have to do my part, play clean football, and get some wins. The rest, it isn't in my hands. Now that's something NFL GMs should be paying serious attention to, because here's what makes Shadr's mindset so dangerous in the best way possible. He's mentally already operating like a veteran. He knows that performance is the only currency that matters, not promises. Not hype, not where you were drafted. The Browns haven't said he's their guy moving forward. That's not speculation, that's directly from Shadr's own mouth. They haven't given him the nod. They haven't secured him as the face of the franchise. And while some in Cleveland might see that as a way to keep competition alive or avoid distractions, all they're really doing is planting seeds of doubt. And not just in Shadr's mind, but in every team watching from the outside. Because here's the truth that's quietly circulating. If Cleveland isn't committed to this kid, somebody else will be. Every team that passed on him, every war room that let him slide into day 3 of the draft, is now watching closely, waiting for cracks in the Browns' foundation, listening to every soundbite, reading between every line in every press conference. Because they see what fans are seeing, a quarterback growing into leadership right in front of our eyes and doing it without the backing that most QBs at his level are handed from day one. And that's the part that makes teams like the Giants absolutely sick. They had a chance, pick after pick, round after round. They watched Shadr drop, knew the pedigree, knew the arm talent, knew the poise he showed in college, and still, they let him slip. Now they're scrambling through another nightmare season, stuck with a quarterback carousel that hasn't produced a meaningful win in over a year. Meanwhile, the kid they could have had is in Cleveland, facing the media with composure, humility, and zero guarantees. That takes a different level of mental strength. Guys his age don't usually talk like that unless they've been through hell, and Shadr's been through some things. He started the season buried on the depth chart. Fans barely knew if he'd see the field this year. Then he stepped in when asked, made plays, took hits, threw touchdowns, ran for his life, and kept this broken Browns offense rolling as much as it possibly could. All without begging for credit. All without pointing fingers. He's had games where things fell apart, games where teammates failed him, games where the defense didn't show up, but never once did you hear him complain. Never once did he throw shade. Instead, he owns his mistakes. He processes the lows with grace. And then, he talks about building blocks. That was the term he used when reflecting on his toughest games, building blocks. He spoke about experience, about taking lessons from each week, about playing a bad game against a dominant defense, and still finding one drive that gave him confidence again, one spark that reminded him who he is. Players like that are rare. Rookies like that are almost unheard of. And yet here we are, watching a fifth-round pick give a press conference that sounded less like a young player trying to earn a job and more like a seasoned pro prepared to earn a long career. But Cleveland hasn't promised him anything. Which begs the question, and this is what should terrify Browns fans, what if they're already planning to draft over him? What if they're looking at USC's new quarterback? Or eyeing someone from Michigan, LSU, Oregon, or Washington and thinking, well, maybe we can upgrade. What if they're blind to what's right in front of them? Because franchises mess this up all the time. They fall in love with potential and forget to respect progress. But Shadr is the kind of progress you bet on. He's not perfect, but he's growing faster than most people anticipated, mentally and on the field. And he's making it very clear that if his time in Cleveland ends, it won't be because he didn't give everything he had. The only question is, will Cleveland realize what they've got before someone else takes him? If you're still wondering whether this is just off-season chatter or media overreaction, let's go back to what Shadr actually said, because his words weren't vague. They weren't spun by headlines. This wasn't one of those cases where the media twisted a harmless quote into drama. No, he said everything himself, and what's more revealing is what the Browns didn't say. When a quarterback, especially a rookie, shows this kind of self-awareness, leadership, and performance in a losing season, teams usually respond quickly. Publicly, even. Coaches and GMs love the narrative of "we found our guy." Fans rally behind that kind of clarity. The locker room responds to it, but with Shadr, there's been silence. Compete for the job? Sure. Earn every snap, of course. But let's not pretend the Browns aren't sending a message with their silence. They've seen what he can do. They've watched him progress through chaos. And yet, nothing, no vote of confidence. No statement outlining how they plan to build around him. No plan shared with fans, just quiet uncertainty wrapped in the hope that nobody's paying too much attention. But people are paying attention. And behind the scenes, GMs across the league are probably smirking, because they've seen this play out before. A team with no clear identity flirts with dysfunction, misreads its quarterback situation, fumbles on patience, and lets a future star walk out the door. We've seen it with Josh Dobbs. We've seen it with Tyrod Taylor. We almost watched it happen with Geno Smith. And now, it's starting to feel like Shadr Sanders could be next. But here's what separates this situation. Shadr isn't causing problems. He's sitting in front of microphones saying, "I have to do my part." And every sentence after that, gold, straight accountability, no excuses. He's taking ownership of the work, the results, even the opportunity to remain with the team. I don't think it's about commitment. It's about controlling what you can control. Those are his words, not a coach putting a spin on things, not a front office issuing a statement. His words. And if you really break that down, what he's saying is simple. They haven't committed to me, so I keep earning it every day. And to be clear, he's not crying about it. That's what makes this even more powerful. He isn't begging for the franchise label. He isn't pleading for support or dropping passive-aggressive hints on social media. He's not riding the "I was disrespected" narrative that so many young players run with these days. He's grinding. He's preparing. And he's accepting that despite doing everything right, he still might not be the future in Cleveland. That's the kind of maturity that can't be taught. And that's why fans in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, and even Pittsburgh are thinking, how did we let this guy fall to the 5th round? Imagine Shadr Sanders walking into any of those organizations with the same attitude, ready to earn it, not entitled, not desperate. Just real, just business. The Giants, in particular, look horrible right now. Not just because of how their season's going, but because they publicly committed to Daniel Jones, again, after years of spotty play. They handed him a massive contract with limited upside. And now, they're watching a rookie in Cleveland who's saying all the things that Jones never did in 5 seasons. Even Giants fans are starting to ask the question, did we just fumble our shot at the guy? Because it's not just about talent. There are a lot of talented QBs in the NFL. What Shadr has is something you can't teach, buy, or manufacture during training camp. It's mentality. The kind that keeps you steady in chaos. The kind that refuses to panic when the franchise doesn't hand you the keys. The kind that says, watch what I do, not what they say. That's scary for defenses, but it's even scarier for the Browns, because if they don't see it now, they never will. And if they wait too long, it'll be too late. All of this leads to one unavoidable reality. If Cleveland isn't all in, teams will line up the second he becomes available. Whether that's through trade, free agency, or a handshake behind closed doors. Someone out there will give him the keys. Because the NFL is always in search of this exact kind of quarterback. Someone young, grounded, coachable, talented, and above all, unshakably focused on growth. Quarterbacks like that don't come around often, and when they do, the smart organizations don't hesitate. But the Browns, they might be hesitating, and that hesitation could cost them everything. Shadr is doing his part. He's giving them every reason to believe in him, every week. Even when stats dip, even when the scoreboard says otherwise. He's owning mistakes, breaking down film, adjusting, and doing what veterans are praised for. So at what point does the organization step forward and say, you're our guy? Because if they don't, these quotes won't just be remembered, they'll be replayed. On draft night, on first take shows, on fan forums, over and over again. And when that day comes, the Browns won't be the only ones with regrets. But they'll be the ones who knew better and did nothing anyway. There's a moment every NFL franchise dreads. It's not the day they lose to a division rival. It's not even the day their playoff hopes evaporate. No, the moment that haunts a front office forever is when they realize they had a future star right in their hands and let him slip away. For the New York Giants, that moment may have just arrived. Because watching Shadr Sanders speak, listening to his tone, his poise, his complete understanding of the business they're all supposed to be experts in, you couldn't help but ask, how did they miss this? Let's not sugarcoat what's happening in New York. They're 2 and whatever. Their quarterback situation is in shambles. Their offense is one of the worst in the league. Daniel Jones is out, again, and the fan base is so starved for hope. They're cheering for backup QBs like it's a high school playoff game. It's desperation disguised as development, and it didn't have to be this way, because Shadr Sanders was right there. He wasn't some mystery prospect. He wasn't playing in Canada. He wasn't coming off a catastrophic injury. He was one of the most watched, most talked about players in college football. He played for Deion Sanders, arguably the most high-profile college coach in the country last season. He was in the spotlight every single week. Analysts knew his name. Executives had scouting tapes on him from week 1. But the league let him fall to the 5th round like he was replaceable. And now they're all pretending like they didn't see this coming. That's the part that stings the most. This is just hindsight. There were signs, there was evidence. Shadr was polished, efficient, coachable. He led with his mind and voice, not his draft status. And everywhere you looked, he showed exactly the kind of leadership traits that win locker rooms over. But he wasn't flashy enough. Maybe he wasn't loud enough off the field. Maybe he didn't fit the perfect mold. So teams kept moving, kept overthinking, kept convincing themselves that some other QB with a bigger arm or a better 40 time would be the safer bet. Now flash forward to the present. The Browns, barely breathing at 3'11", have a quarterback who is handling pressure, failure, and organizational uncertainty better than veterans making $40 million per year. Meanwhile, teams like the Giants are literally spiraling, clinging to whatever hope a future draft pick might bring while watching Shadr give the exact kind of answers they wish their own starter could produce. That's not just a bad decision. That's a massive organizational failure. Let's zoom in on one of the press conference's most gut-wrenching exchanges. A reporter asked Shadr, with a completely normal, future-focused tone, "Have you thought about where you could be next year? How much better it might look?" A rookie quarterback with less mental discipline would have answered, "Yeah, next year will be better. I'm excited about the direction." They would have tried to keep it optimistic, keep it safe. But Shadr, he didn't speak like he was trying to sell hope. He spoke like someone who's already seen what false hope looks like. "No, I live in the present. I'm focused on this week, this game, each week, every game, because nothing's promised." That right there is why teams are feeling sick. That's not just a football answer. That's maturity packed into a 20-second quote. That's an understanding of the moment and the machine around him. That's someone who gets it. He's aware that being good isn't enough. That being promising isn't enough. That one misstep or one shift in management could mean starting over again. So he stays locked in. He stays where his feet are. And that's exactly why players like him last in this league, even when they aren't given the spotlight. Meanwhile, New York and teams like them are scrambling. trying to figure out who their quarterback of the future is, while Shadr literally sits in Cleveland saying all the things that front offices claim they want to hear. And doing all the things those same teams say they value. He's not a prisoner of stats. He's not pointing fingers at his coaches. He's not complaining when protection breaks down. He's not sulking when plays fall flat. In fact, even when talking about his worst performance against the Ravens, he found something positive. That last drive, that's when I felt like myself again. That's when he knew he belonged. He saw it. He felt it. In a moment where lesser QBs would have crumbled from self-doubt or let the media chew them alive, Shadr found clarity. Most young quarterbacks never recover mentally from a game like that. Shadr built confidence from it. Let that sink in. And when he was asked where he's improved the most since that game, he didn't say arm strength or footwork. He said failure. As in, he's learned from his worst days. Learn to use failure as fuel, not shame. That's how champions think. That's what organizations beg their quarterbacks to understand after 3 years of mistakes, heartbreaks, and tough losses. Shadr figured it out in 1 season. And the most ironic part, it's all happening in one of the most unstable organizations in football, behind a shaky offensive line, without a real commitment from the team, under constant pressure, on camera every week. And yet, as the rest of the NFL flails, he's steady. That's the quarterback you build around. That's the quarterback 31 other teams should have believed in when they had the chance. And if we're being realistic, the moment the Browns show even a whisper of doubt, those same teams will come calling. Because nobody wants to be the next GM watching Shadr succeed somewhere else, replaying his press conference quotes in their head thinking, we could have had him, he was right there. And the worst part, he still might be. What happened during that press conference wasn't some viral soundbite. It wasn't a bold quote meant to trigger headlines, and it wasn't some emotional outburst that grabbed attention for the wrong reasons. It was the opposite. What made Shadr Sanders' words so impactful was the tone, the calmness, the consistency. It was how he spoke, not just what he said, that turned a routine Wednesday media session into a quiet message the entire league needed to hear. There was no fluff, no bravado, no manufactured confidence. Just a young quarterback standing in front of reporters and speaking from a place most rookies never reach in their first season, real self-awareness. He wasn't campaigning for a starting job. He wasn't pleading for more leash. He was acknowledging the reality most players refuse to say out loud. I can only control what I can control. And inside that single quote is an entire philosophy that defines why some players last in the league and some fade by year 3. Because that mindset, it's rare, especially at quarterback. Most rookies come in and either fold under the pressure or lean too far into false confidence. They ride the highs, blame the lows, and lean on coaches to make excuses when things go sideways. But Shadr, he's already past that stage. When asked about commitment, he didn't hesitate. He said, no, I don't think it's about commitment. It's about doing my part and letting the rest take care of itself. That's a veteran's answer. That's someone who understands that no matter what a front office says today, it can all change by next week. And whether he meant to or not, that press conference wasn't just about this season. It became a statement about his whole approach to the league. And the message was clear. Don't waste time begging for belief. Earn it, again and again. Now here's where things get even more interesting. The press didn't just ask him about the Browns' commitment. They also circled back to the pain, his roughest games, particularly the Ravens matchup. Most QBs would brush past that, say it wasn't their best day, move on. Shadr, he leaned into it. He said the experience was valuable. He said the struggles gave him something to build on. He said he was super appreciative that everything happened how it happened. Read that again. Super appreciative. About getting sacked, about being doubted, about going through the storm that most players hide from. That's not normal. That's next-level maturity. He then zoomed in on one moment, the final drive in that Ravens game. Not because it won the game or changed the headline, but because that's where he got his rhythm back. That's when he felt like himself. In the middle of a nightmare game, he found the spark and refused to let it go. And once again, this tells you everything you need to know, because that's not about talent. It's about what happens when you're under pressure and nothing is going right. It's the voice in your head that says, settle in, you've been here before, you belong here. That's elite football IQ. But more than that, it's self-trust. Something even top draft picks struggle to develop over time. And that's probably why so many fans walked away from that press conference saying the same thing. This guy's different. He's not crying that he was drafted late. He's not looking ahead to his next contract. He's not demanding the team revolve around him. He's not talking about stats. He's talking about feel, about focus, about presence. His entire energy screams, "I'm locked in." And that presence, that quiet confidence. That's why so many people are asking, why haven't the Browns committed yet? Because by every metric, mental toughness, emotional control, leadership traits, Shadr already looks like a player Cleveland should be building around. Not questioning, not evaluating, building around. And yet still silence. That's what makes this whole situation so tense. Because whether Cleveland wants to admit it or not, every camera, every fanbase, every GM paying attention heard the tone in Shadr's voice and realized something the Browns might be ignoring. This guy doesn't need your commitment, but he deserves it. And if you're not ready to give it to him, don't be surprised when someone else does. Because in a league full of talent, mindset is what separates the flashes from the franchise players. Shedeur Sanders just proved he understands that more than half the veterans in the league. And he did it all in one press conference. No rants, no gimmicks. Just a calm, mature, calculated conversation that may have quietly shifted everything. There are times when the loudest thing in the room is what's said, it's what's not said. And listening closely to Shedeur Sanders in that press conference, you couldn't shake the feeling that something else was happening beneath the surface. On the outside, it was classic media duty. Hit your talking points, stay respectful, answer the questions. But that's not what people walked away talking about, because between every pause, every carefully chosen word, there was a message. Shadr knows. He knows what's going on behind the scenes. He knows there's been no commitment. He knows the Browns are weighing their options, reading draft boards, watching other QBs enter the spotlight. He knows the NFL isn't about fairness, it's about leverage and timing. And he knows the second someone in the front office starts using words like evaluate, competition, or best available, things get messy fast. Even when he was directly asked if the team has told him he's the starter next year, something that would be easy to confirm if it were true, he said, "The rest isn't in my hands." That's not speculation. That's not clickbait. That's a quarterback calmly confirming what fans have feared for weeks. The Browns haven't committed to him, even after everything he's done for them. And still, no resentment, no bitterness, no taking shots in frustration, just pure composure. But make no mistake, he's aware. That's where the deeper meaning lies. Because you don't answer like that unless you've already thought it through. He's not confused. He's not waiting on a phone call to find out where he stands. He already knows. The Browns are keeping their options open, and he's already preparing for that. Now let's talk about that. Think about what it means to be a rookie quarterback in the NFL on a team falling apart with no guarantees about your future and still sound more put together than half the league. That takes control. That takes emotional intelligence that most players never develop. It also shows you what kind of thinker he is. Because even in adversity, Shadr didn't speak like someone hoping things would magically work out. He spoke like someone who understands the system and is choosing to dominate it from within. That's dangerous for every team that overlooked him. Because that mindset, it doesn't just belong in the league. It leads in the league. Everything about how Shadr handled those questions signals one thing: he's not waiting to be saved. He's quietly holding receipts. He's watching. He's listening. He knows who believes in him and who doesn't. Don't be surprised if he's already building a mental list of the teams that passed on him. Don't be surprised if he's already imagining what it would feel like to light up the Giants in a revenge game 2 years from now. Don't be surprised if this becomes his origin story, the moment where the league didn't believe, but he kept pushing anyway. Because here's what should scare the Browns, more than any draft prospect or free agent QB floating in the rumor mill. Shadr is already acting like he doesn't need their commitment to succeed. He's already operating with the kind of professionalism you hope your franchise guy has in year 5, not year 1. And if he's doing this without your trust, imagine what he could do for a team that actually builds around him. That's the part nobody's saying out loud. If Shadr is this calm, this focused, this composed under uncertainty, what would he look like with stability, with a system catered to him, with an O-line he could trust, a front office that believed in him, and a team that wasn't just seeing how it plays out? The ceiling is terrifying, in the best way, and it's not just about raw talent. Plenty of guys can throw the ball. Plenty of guys run fast, read defenses, improvise under pressure. But how many can do all that and walk into a press conference, knowing their job isn't secure, and still carry themselves with that level of poise? It's almost like he's preparing for something beyond football. Like he's not just focused on games, but on legacy, on impact, on navigating this league with purpose. And that's not something you teach with a playbook. That's who he is. So when Shadr talks about how nothing is promised, it's not fear, it's not insecurity, it's acceptance. Strategic, calculated acceptance. He's letting other people fill the silence. He's laying down the truth and watching what happens next. Because if Cleveland doesn't offer the trust he's earning, he's already okay with walking away. And the second that opportunity opens up, even just a whisper of it, there are teams that will move fast. Because franchises don't just want playmakers. They want presence. They want leadership. They want someone who shows up every week ready to go with nothing more than belief in themselves. Shadr has already shown that loud and clear, even when the team hasn't. So no, he didn't say he's leaving. He didn't trash anyone. He didn't write the headline out loud. But if you really listen, you can hear the door creaking open. Here's the part that still doesn't make sense. The Cleveland Browns are one of the most unstable franchises in recent NFL history. Quarterback turnover, front office drama, coaching changes, dysfunction around every corner. And in spite of all that chaos, they somehow stumbled into a gift, maybe one of the most mature and grounded rookie quarterbacks this team has ever seen. And they still haven't committed to him. Let that sink in. In a league where teams bend over backwards trying to find a quarterback with even half the mental fortitude Shadr Sanders has shown, the Browns are sitting on one. And keeping him at arm's length. No long-term plan, no public endorsement, no talk of building around him, just radio silence. And that silence, it's deafening, because here's what history tells us. When you've got something real at quarterback, you don't wait, you secure it, you protect it, you build your entire vision around it. You say it out loud so your locker room knows who the leader is. You make sure your guy feels the weight of that trust. But when you stay quiet, when you keep it vague, keep things in flux. When you watch your quarterback check every single box and still refuse to call him your guy, you're sending a very clear message. We're still looking. And that's where this gets dangerous. Because if the Browns are still evaluating Shadr, still thinking about who's available in the draft, still imagining what this team could be with another shiny new QB prospect, they're playing with fire. They're risking everything on a gamble that might not even exist. Because guess what? The 2025 quarterback class isn't a guaranteed upgrade. There's no generational lock like Caleb Williams. There's no surefire day one superstar walking into the league. They'll still have to wait, still have to develop, still have to hope their new guy has the kind of mental toughness Shadr has already demonstrated. Hope versus proof, potential versus results, hype versus humility. This right here is how teams hit reset over and over again. It's why so many franchises stay trapped in quarterback purgatory, because they're always chasing the perfect prospect while ignoring the one quietly becoming everything they claim they want right in front of them. And the worst part? Cleveland should know better. How many times have they done this? How many QB mistakes are they up to now? 24, 25. The jersey list of past starters is an internet meme at this point. And yet here they are, potentially making the exact same mistake again. Because instead of solidifying a foundation around Shadr, they're creating distance. Instead of empowering a leadership voice, they're giving him the cold shoulder. And instead of saying, "We believe in you," they're leaving him to figure it out on his own. That's not how you build something. That's how you slowly lose the most important player on your roster. And while all this is happening, let's not forget, there are teams watching every second of this. The Giants, Patriots, the Raiders, the Falcons, the Commanders. Teams desperate for a culture reset. Teams with unstable quarterback play. Teams who have been embarrassed on prime time, who have tried the rebuilds, the reclamation projects, the overhyped free agent signings. These teams would take Shadr in a heartbeat. And why wouldn't they? He's humble, but he's dangerous. Respectful, but calculated. Smart, poised, emotionally grounded. He doesn't make headlines, he lets his words echo. That matters in locker rooms. That builds respect. That wins over veterans. And that kind of mentality, combined with the growth he's showing weekly, is what makes him worth betting everything on. So while the Browns sit on their hands, weighing draft stock and evaluating all options, there are people in their own building who already know the truth. They're seeing the signs. They're feeling the energy shift. The media's picking it up. The fan base is torn. One half says he's the future. The other half isn't sure why the organization refuses to treat him like it. But if Cleveland hesitates too long, they won't get the chance to change their mind. Because here's how it plays out, scripted or not, one forgotten quote turns into one ignored player. That ignored player stays quiet, handles his business, proves himself anyway. The support never comes. But one day, a team that actually does believe makes a call. Maybe it's a trade. Maybe it's free agency. Maybe it's behind closed doors, but the offer is there. And just like that, the Browns aren't evaluating anymore. They're in a bidding war they could have avoided. And the guy they could have sealed in long ago is now gone and thriving. So if the Browns are smart, they'll wake up fast. Otherwise, they will join the long list of teams that had exactly what they needed and didn't realize it until it was way too late. The craziest part. While the Browns hesitate, while fans debate, and while Shadr continues to speak like the most composed rookie in football, there's a secret waiting game happening across the league. And it's not a coincidence. Multiple franchises are quietly watching this unfold like hawks circling above wounded prey. Because they all know the same thing: if Cleveland doesn't commit to Shadr Sanders, someone else will. And here's the twist: some of these teams that are watching with the most interest are the very same ones that passed on him just months ago. The ones that looked at a fully polished, battle-tested college quarterback with leadership traits, NFL bloodlines, and mental sharpness, and still said, "Nah, we'll wait." Now they're sick. Now they've seen what he really is. And now they may be getting a second chance they did not expect. Let's talk about a few of them. You already know the first one, the New York Giants. They're basically in quarterback purgatory. Daniel Jones is hurt, overpaid, and inconsistent. The fan base has zero belief left in the rebuild, and the front office is already facing heat for handing Jones a massive contract extension just before he fell apart again. They had a shot at Shadr and passed. Imagine they get another one. The Giants are sitting on a top draft pick and staring down another offseason of uncertainty at the most important position in football. They could panic draft another project QB, or if the Browns get cold feet, they could pick up the phone and ask about Shadr. And this time, they wouldn't hesitate. Then there's the Atlanta Falcons. Great skill players, solid defense, a strong foundation. But the quarterback room, confusion wrapped in mediocrity. They've cycled through Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heinicke, and a handful of short-term patches. It's not working, and fans know it. But imagine Shadr dropping into that system, with an offensive coach who believes in him and a fan base starved for excitement. It's a natural fit. And it wouldn't take much for Atlanta to package a future pick for a quietly unhappy QB who's already proven he can handle pressure. Let's not forget the Seattle Seahawks. They're in a unique spot. Geno Smith has played well, but he's not the long-term answer. He's respected, but he's aging. The Seahawks have a history of building around underdog quarterbacks and letting them rise, not forcing them into systems unprepared. Sound familiar? Shadr is that guy. He thrives without guarantees. He doesn't need to be crowned, he needs space to cook. Seattle has that structure, that coaching staff, that culture. Pete Carroll may be near the end, sure, but imagine leaving the franchise with a QB built like Shadr at the helm. That's legacy. How about the Las Vegas Raiders? They're in the middle of another identity crisis. No clear quarterback solution. The Jimmy G experiment is finished. Their rookie didn't pan out. And the AFC West isn't getting any easier with the Chiefs still on top and the Broncos slowly stabilizing. Vegas needs a spark, someone marketable, young, hungry, ready for the spotlight. Shadr brings all of that, and he doesn't fold under media pressure. Drop him into that franchise, let him shine, and suddenly the Raiders become relevant again. Even the New England Patriots are circling. Don't think they are. Mac Jones flamed out. The post-Brady era has been a nightmare. The defense is still serviceable, but the offense, stuck in 1998. They need a quarterback who can modernize the identity of the team, one who's unshaken by headlines and already understands how to carry himself like a pro. And if anyone is built to handle the weight of playing in that kind of rigid system, it's Shadr. No handouts, no fluff, nothing promised. Sound familiar? That's been his life since day one, and we haven't even touched on the sleeper teams. The ones with aging vets who might want to quietly groom someone behind the scenes. The Saints, the Buccaneers, even the Vikings, depending on what happens with Cousins. All of them are evaluating rookie QBs early in their contracts who haven't shown half the mental floor Shadr has already built. What if the Browns do what so many other franchises have done? Hesitate, draft for the next shiny thing, or chase someone with better combined numbers but no real feel for the game? All it takes is one misstep. One awkward offseason meeting, one round of front office turnover, one head coach who wants his guy. And suddenly, Sanders is right back where he started, underestimated but rising. The moment the door opens or even cracks, a bidding war begins. And unlike the draft day mistreatment, this time things will be different. He'll have leverage. He'll have game tape. He'll have respect from every corner of the league. He'll be on every short list. And the teams that once saw him as a backup plan will now be offering the keys to the franchise. Make no mistake, the league is watching. Quietly, patiently, calculating. They're not waiting to believe in Shadr Sanders anymore. They're just waiting for Cleveland to blow it. Strip away the stats. Forget the touchdowns. Take away the highlight throws, the jersey sales, the media buzz. What Shadr Sanders brings to the table isn't just defined by what he does on Sunday. It's how he prepares Monday through Saturday. It's how he exists in the space between the moments. And if you've been paying attention from the start, you know exactly what makes him different. What Shadr has shown during one of the most unpredictable, pressure-packed rookie seasons in recent memory is something you can't find in scouting reports. It's not measurable in combined drills. It doesn't show up on a whiteboard or in a one-derlick score. It's presence. A controlled, grounded energy that settles the noise around him, even when everything's on fire. That's not normal. Especially for a fifth-round pick who was supposed to be stashed at the bottom of a depth chart while more NFL-ready prospects were handed opportunities. Shadr didn't get a clean rollout. He didn't inherit a playoff roster. He walked into chaos and brought order. Quiet. Calm. Clarity. Most young quarterbacks either collapse under those conditions or make excuses. Shadr has done neither. And he's done it all without being empowered by the front office. That's what's so important here. He's taken on accountability with zero guarantees. He's taken ownership of the offense without being anointed. He's carried himself like a franchise quarterback in an environment that clearly isn't treating him like one. Let's go back to that quote. I like the route that it took. I'm super appreciative that everything happened how it happened. That's not a PR line. That's not something you say unless you've truly embraced failure. And not in theory, in real time. He wasn't just talking about a bad game. He was talking about being thrown into the fire. He was talking about taking hits, playing behind a weak line, making mistakes on third downs, trying to stay composed in post-game interviews while the world called the Browns a mess. And instead of breaking, he says he's grateful. You can't coach that. You can't fake it under pressure. That's not DNA the league sees very often, even among veterans. That's what elevates good players into true leaders. And yet, the Browns still haven't officially claimed him, still haven't said, this is our guy, this is who we're building around. Which tells you something even deeper. Shadr doesn't just live without guarantees, he thrives in that reality. Everything he's accomplished this season, every adjustment he's made, every drive he's put together, every interview he's handled, all of it has happened without institutional structure behind him. He's improving weekly in a place that's giving him every reason not to succeed. Now imagine what happens when he steps into a building that does believe in him. Imagine what it looks like when his offensive coordinator is building a system for him, not just plugging him in while waiting to draft someone else. Imagine him walking into a locker room where the front office says, plainly, you are the future, and we're ready to invest in you. What does that version of Shadr Sanders look like? Because if this current version, the one operating under fog, pressure, and doubt, is already showing glimpses of elite potential, how high is the ceiling once you remove those obstacles? Whatever quarterback Cleveland thinks they're waiting for, there's a strong argument that he's already here. Forget the draft. Forget the headlines. Forget what the scouts missed back in April. Shadr is proving right now that he's got something no quarterback coming out of college next year can guarantee. He's already been tested. And he didn't break. He adjusted. He learned. He took responsibility. He matured. He led. What's that worth in a league where coaches get fired quarterly and quarterbacks flame out before finding consistency? What Shadr has shown is more valuable than traits, more valuable than memes, more valuable than one hit game or a flashy stat line. He's showing the mentality of a guy who's going to be around for a long time, whether Cleveland commits or not. So now we're here. A rookie quarterback just stood in front of the media, admitted he has no promises about next year, no guarantees from the team that drafted him, and yet still handled it with more professionalism and clarity than some veterans ever reach. Shadr Sanders didn't throw a fit. He didn't ask for sympathy. He didn't beg for validation. He just told the truth. Nothing's promised. I have to do my part just to even be able to be here next year. And somehow, that one sentence said more than entire seasons do. Because whether the Browns realize it or not, they're holding something rare. A quarterback who's mature beyond his years. A player who embraces failure, demands accountability from himself, and stays locked in despite having every excuse to check out. He's built for this. And if Cleveland fumbles the opportunity to build around him, the rest of the league is ready to capitalize. This isn't about hype anymore. This isn't about where he was drafted or how much press he got in college. This is about the very thing every NFL team claims they're searching for, a real leader. Not just someone who throws touchdowns, not just someone who runs fast, talks big, or posts flashy workout clips, but someone who sees the chaos and keeps his head straight. Someone who doesn't panic when support is missing. Someone who shows up week after week, determined to earn it, even when he shouldn't have to anymore. That's Shadr Sanders. And now the pressure is on the Browns. Because if they don't commit, clearly, loudly, undeniably, then they'll become yet another team that let their guy walk without ever realizing what they had. Ask yourself this. How many more quarterbacks does Cleveland think they'll find with this level of maturity? How many more chances will they get to build around a talent that's already learning how to lead before he's even been handed the keys? This isn't just about protecting your asset. It's about protecting your future. Because if they don't, if the Browns let this moment slip, they won't just lose a quarterback. They'll lose the one guy who walked into the worst-case scenario and turned it into something worth believing in. So now I'll ask you, do you think the Browns are making a mistake by not committing to Shadr Sanders as their franchise QB? And if they don't, if another team gets their hands on him, who do you think should make the first move? Drop your answers in the comments, because trust me, this conversation is just getting started. And if you've made it this far, you already know you're part of the family now. Make sure you tap that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because whatever happens next with Shadr, whether he stays, walks, or makes the biggest comeback in NFL QB history, I'll be here covering every moment. Until next time, stay locked in. Peace.